Hi, everyone. Welcome back to AdBits. AdBits is powered by 2.0 Film. I'm London-based, working with our Slovenia-based team. We cover Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy and Austria, fast turnarounds, top-tier crews, and standout locations. If you've got a bid coming up, give me a call. Today, I'm joined by Barny Wright, the mighty Barny Wright, the CEO and founding partner at Number 8. Number 8 is a multidisciplinary post-production studio based in Soho, bringing together color, audio, and VFX under one roof. In one of the most competitive post markets in the world, they've built a reputation that travels, and that doesn't happen by accident. Barney's career is also interesting. He started in technical roles, moved into production, and now leads the business. That blend of technical depth and commercial leadership is rare in post. So, Barney, great to see you. Thanks for coming on. Let's start at the beginning. You began in technical roles before moving into production and eventually leadership. When did you stop thinking like a specialist and start thinking like an owner?
I'm a nerd at heart, really. So the technical side of it has always been something that came to me. I found an opportunity to do something that combined maths and art, which is where the sort of the VFX and that pipeline came from. When I started off at Frame Store, I was very much technical roles, and then went and post-supervised a few feature films. And from that point on, when I was working at a company in East London, actually, and they were doing UK independent feature films. And the guy that ran it, I'm going to try and phrase this in a nice way. Basically, I worked out if he could run a business, I could run a business. So, so I then at that point launched a production company for a while. And so I had a production company which did content, what we call content now, really, which was branded entertainment. So things like Bacardi and Virgin, places like that. That was me and two colleagues, friends from college, actually. And we did that. One was an editor, and one was a producer and director. So I sort of moved into the sort of management role at that point. And then after the economic crash in whatever it was, 2009, something like that, I moved back into pure advertising and started working at Big Boy. I moved through a progression of roles there, which really put me first into my idea of production, really, and sort of producing commercials. But I've always came from a slightly entrepreneurial side of it. And the commercial side has always been quite big in my mind, had to sort of blend the two. But equally, fundamentally, most of the time, it's like I want to work on something, I figure out a way to do it. And the producer and the creative side of me quite often wins over the commercial side. As the business has got bigger, making the decisions on those projects becomes less about, well, it's really cool, and more like, it's really cool, but we've also got lots of mouths to feed, and actually having to make more grown-up decisions. So sort of my progression of actually what being an owner has changed over time, and how I make those decisions has changed over time. But I'm always looking at it through a few different lenses. I'm looking at it from a commercial lens, as in, is it something that we can sustain? Do we need to invest in it? Can we invest in it? And also, what does it do from a creative point of view? And what does the team want to? What does the team get to do? Do we actually get to make some things they want to?
Yeah, I can imagine. When you became a founding partner at Number 8, what hit you quickly about running a business that you hadn't fully appreciated before? You kind of touched on it just then with mouths to feed.
Yeah, well, I'd run a business before, but much smaller. Although, to be honest, when we launched Number 8, there was only 7 of us. We took over an existing business, so there was already, and that was one of the main attractions to it. There was already an income stream. There was already a client base there. And what we did with Number 8 was we took what was an original audio business, and then added what my background and what Jim's background is VFX, with the idea of bringing the two things together. So the VFX and audio is being done through one production team, which at the time no one was really doing to any success in advertising in London. It felt very clean, but we did give it mean what we already had. Rather than just starting from scratch with no building, we took over a company. We already had an existing client base, some of which maintained, some of which we evolved and did those things. But it gave us a different starting point to just going, okay, it's just the 2 of us in a room. So,
and sort of London isn't short of post houses.
It's really not now.
Really not, but yeah. So why does Number 8 exist?
Why does it exist? It existed because me and Jim, who was on the founding partners, my partner, creative director, we were working for another business. We were working for Big Boy, which was owned by Tag. We wanted the autonomy to be able to do something ourselves independently, because being part of mega network attack by that point had become problematic. When it was Steve and Rich running Tag, it was much easier because they understood the benefits of a boutique post house within it. But when it became global and DHL and owned by that level, it became a very different beast. So me and Jim wanted to do something else where we had more control. Where we saw the opportunity to be able to bring VFX and audio together, and to be able to facilitate work in a different way, be able to make decisions quicker, be nimbler. Now looking about this now, since then, there's been a lot more launches, a lot more competition in the market. So it's being super saturated. There's lots of people competing for probably fewer traditional agency commercial jobs. So it's becoming harder, but what exists is that we still have the great talent across all the disciplines. And the way that we've always said with Number 8, it's not, I hate the idea of it being called a one-shop stop. I see it as a no compromise solution where you get the best in class talent, but facilitated through one production team, which gives you the creative benefits of having audio upstream. It gives you an operational benefit in terms of logistics, how quickly things can move, and a commercial benefit. So we've got one set of overheads that we need to facilitate so we can pass those cost savings on to clients when needed.
Yes, could have asked for a fuller answer there, please. To be honest, you're like on fire. I'm like, this is awesome. How does he manage it?
I got practice.
Going through the questions, and I'm looking at it thinking, oh, he's already answered that. I mean, I was about to say, what gap did you see in the market when you started? But I mean, you've already kind of answered that, really.
Yeah, that's also, that evolves constantly. It's the opportunities, the challenges and the opportunities change on a month by month, quarter by quarter basis. And actually looking at what the market's doing, we're always looking for ways that we need to re-establish what we're doing, keep that competitive edge, do things like we bought a film and TV company last year so that we could diversify the revenue. So it's advertising and film and TV. That was the thing. We're looking at it this year. We're looking at actually what's the structure of the company, that what we need to be able to facilitate client needs now rather than what we did 3 years ago, because it's constantly evolving. The way work's coming from is completely changing. What we're being asked to deliver for a certain amount of money is being changing. So we have to restructure to allow those things to happen. It's a constantly moving beast. It never stands still. It's like, but post-production has always done that.
Yeah, oh, it's really interesting. And also it seems you're buying businesses that were already doing that. I mean, I'm going off script now, but it seems as though you would say that that's the best way to go forward because it's already got a revenue stream. There's already a business. You're not starting out from the beginning and painting the walls when you walk in. You're two men in a room, or two people in a room. Let's say
strategy is a strategy we have always believed in, and we could have organically done it, and we could have made some hires and moved on from that way. But actually, what we wanted to be able to do is be able to move quicker than that, and be able to move in every different areas, and fundamentally add more creative offerings. Because if we'd stuck to be, we're only going to stick to work coming from X agencies, that isn't sustainable in the current market.
That's really interesting. Okay, and commercially speaking, what has been the most important decision you've made in building the company so far?
That's a very good question.
Sounds like the partners not
but that brings challenges.
You've got some great people, and we've got some amazing people.
We've got some great talent. We've made some good creative decisions, which has helped. We were lucky to work with some great directors, especially in the early days. We've moved on. We've hired really well. We've had to rehire multiple times because we've had people that have moved on to different businesses, and we're constantly evolving that. I think the best commercial decision we've probably ever made, really, is the ability to be able to make decisions as quickly as possible, and actually make decisions from a position of strength, and be able to look down the line. The way I look at business isn't trying to look at what our competitors are doing. It's looking at what our clients are doing, or looking at what brands are doing, or looking at what the film goes, because they're decisions that we need to make, because that's what they're going to want, rather than me looking over and going, oh, that company's doing all the work, we should copy them. It's like, I don't really mind what happens there. I'm looking at what's happening downstream, and also how we can position ourselves downstream as well, and take more control over that. There's
a famous entrepreneur who always says you always got to see where the eyes are at, where the eyes are looking at, and that's a really, really smart. It's a very astute way of looking at things. I think you look around now, companies that political parties that ape another, in order to, they're not winning anything, are they? It's
not really, no. I think, and it's also, it might give you very short-term pops, but actually looking at the bigger picture and looking at where where the industry as a whole, where society is taking things, actually that's a much a longer term strategy on it. It's actually knowing what is going to be there in a few years, what's going to be there in 6 months, or in 3 years, and especially with the onset of technology and AI, is how things are evolving quite quickly. And from the advertising, branding, advertising, and other business, we're looking at where the work's coming from the whole time. Is that we've got these mega networks consolidating, pushing work in a certain way that is going to have an impact on every single independent post company in the world.
Yeah.
There's no way that's not because one of them performing better than another. It's a strategic billion-dollar investment that is going to happen. So it's like you could sort of say, "Oh, we'll be fine because people like us." Doesn't last that long when you've got companies putting billions of pounds in to make it work a different way.
Yeah, that's very. It's a much more difficult, trickier way of looking at things. It's much easier to ape another and look around and look next to you, your neighbors, and what they're doing. But it's the only way what you're doing. It's super smart. It's great to hear.
It's really hard because it's like most people like don't spend their entire time looking at the wider world and the industry. It's like this when the company. So I did a whole presentation the other day talking about the things that were in my head, explaining why decisions made, because I realize I sometimes can live in a bubble where I'm looking and talking to CMOs and looking at brands, and that isn't what an artist doing a job does. They're seeing that and they're looking on LinkedIn, or they're seeing on LinkedIn and going, "Oh, well, that company's doing this." It's like, that is true, and they're doing amazingly, but we've got to think bigger than that. We've got to think more strategic than that. We've got to think more future facing than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult running a business, and then you just get you get blinkered for obvious reasons. It's just so easy to do, to be able to step back and be able to look at the bigger picture, which there's like everyone's talking about. There's never been a more important time for us to be doing that. Now's the time, isn't it?
Happening more. It's like you wake up over the weekend and there's horrendous news going what's going on in the Middle East. But actually, it's great. It's really bad on the humanitarian point of view. But also, what impact is that going to have on trade? What impact is that going to have on advertising spend? What's going to happen? Like, even things like, okay, well, the World Cup's effect. What does that affect on Nike spending money for the World Cup? These things all trickle through into commercials. So having to look at all these things the whole time while also running a creative, commercial, successful business. There's a lot of things you have to be constantly thinking about. It's not just what is X company doing? Why have they hired that one person? It's actually such a bigger thing than that.
That's very interesting. Okay, so because talent isn't enough, what actually makes a post house commercially sustainable in 2026?
Cash flow strategy. 100% too. It's like you can have the best talent in the world. If you don't manage cash flow well, you're going to have problems. And managing cash flow well depends on strategy and just knowing where the work's coming from, because grow. And we grew very rapidly, very quickly. And I think we did it relatively sustainably. But what happens is that you hire, you have new buildings, you have lots of people, and you're relying on a certain income stream to keep that margin, to be able to invest it again, to be able to cash flow brands that are going to be paying you on 180-day terms quite often when you're paying monthly. So that cash flow is really important, and understanding that and being able to do that. And also not resting on laurels and looking ahead and going, okay, well, this is where we're now. We might have had a great month, 3 months, 6 months, a year. What's that going to be like in 6 months? How do we make sure that that's sustainable? How do we diversify the revenue? Because talent is very, very important, and the output of the work is very important. And there's lots of metrics on showing why creativity enhances effectiveness and how all those things. And I'm a big believer in craft, but you also need to look at it very much from a commercial point of view, which is boring for most people, to be honest. Most people that come from a creative background don't look at that side.
They can't.
Yeah.
Doesn't compute.
Yeah. I quite like that side, to be honest.
It's pretty interesting. Okay, and let's talk about how post really wins work. So when agencies or production companies choose a partner, what are they actually buying?
This has changed so much. If we're talking about purely advertising side of business or branded side of the business, is that you go back 5-10 years ago, it was you could identify the relationship, why a job was happening at a certain place.
Yeah, and I remember working production side. You would know which post house you would speak to, who were the right people. I mean, there was also less post houses then. So, it was kind of like then it was much more relationship led, of course. It was much more personality based as well, I would say.
It was very much more personality based. It was very much relationship based, and I've done well out of my relationships. So I'm never going to be too critical of that as a system, but it's changed a lot. Is that the agency producer post-producer relationship was super important. The director, maybe the creatives were super important. Now you've got to throw in holding company relationships. You've got to throw in a global competitive nature of being able to do the thing. You've got loads more competitors on it. How are they going to do that? What are the relationships between the post companies and the production companies and the agencies? Is there a legal financial incentive thing happening there, and all these sort of things? There's a million different things you can do it. Plus you then throw in triple bids, and it's really difficult to predict where things are going to come from. I used to be very good at it, and some of my radar and knowing if a job was going to happen, I used to be great. I used to go, actually, I know exactly that's going to happen or not. Now it's like, you don't know. So it's a fight for every single advertising job really out there. It's project by project. There's certain clients that are very loyal and do things, but even that loyalty gets tested very well, because they're being asked to do things because they've got to get work. And it's like, directors are going to push for you to a certain point, not to the point where they're going to lose work in a market where there is less work than there was, or they're being squeezed in other areas. It's very difficult to things. So I think all you can do is do your job well, deliver a creatively good, on budget, on time, try and sustain the relationships, but don't make any assumptions that because you've done that, the next project is definitely yours, because the decision maker, there's too many decision makers now to be on that, and being, okay, we'll give you the next one. No one can guarantee any of that anymore.
It didn't used to be like that at all, but it does feel exactly like that now.
It
I was just about to ask the next question, which you've kind of
is it?
These are response. I have to be honest, Barney, as I'm not surprised, these responses are excellent. Is it, I was just going to say, is it relationship, real trust, or price, and which one wins more often than people admit?
Well, you're quite often sort of the days of what's the rate card went a long time ago. It's back into a number. Can you facilitate it?
Yes.
And then it's a case of, can you facilitate it and not hit me with a massive overage? And then there's a lot of trust on, okay, well, that's got to be two ways. We can say this, but then you've got to make sure from a production point of view, we are actually shooting the things that we shot, or we aren't trying to extend things too much. And there's where the relationship comes in. I think it's different for every job. It's different for the scale of job. It depends where the job's coming from. 100%. There's definitely projects that have come recently, probably last 9-12 months, that come from a holding company, and like we still get a lot of work from the big three, but there's obviously there's incentives and for them to be pushing the work to other places, which I totally understand from a commercial point of view. I would be doing the same if I was running a holding company. Yeah. But there's also realization that actually certain time projects, when you're seeing them, you know pretty quickly that job won't be leaving that company, that group. So actually I think there's probably maybe a little bit of transparency that needs to happen around knowing those things, maybe. Because I don't want to say you should step away from a bid, because maybe it will happen, but if you're running a holding company, you're seeing a job that's going out and it's going out to a post company and there's lots of margin on it, you're going to keep that job in-house, whatever it takes, because otherwise you wouldn't have invested so much money in the acquisitions and the facilities to be able to facilitate that work. So
that's interesting. Why do post houses lose work? Are margins tighter now than they were 5 years ago? I think it's all clear on that. Or are expectations just higher? And you mentioned the holding companies. It's interesting with this world now changing, with this consolidation effect occurring. What would you say?
Well, margins definitely are tightening, but that's been happening for a long period of time.
Yeah,
that's not a new thing. That's not related to the consolidation within holding companies. That's related to client spend and the change in what the main metric on what a marketing campaign is. I did a little bit of a presentation about this the other day, looking back at 10 years ago, where the 30-second TV spot was 40% of the marketing budget for that thing, and now it's 10%. 70% of the work's going into meta or tech, and that's like it becomes a less important thing. So there's more money overall, but small amount of money is going into the bits that we all traditionally did. Which basically means you've got shrinking schedules, shrinking budgets. So you've got two ways of doing that. You can either write a cheaper idea. No one seems to like that, or you squeeze margin, and the margin gets squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. Timelines get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And it's like, there's a certain point where that just doesn't wash anymore. So people go into, okay, well, can we do it? Can we go into it in Eastern Europe where overheads are lower? Can we do this? And that's been happening for a sustained period of time. And you can whinge about it and you can moan about it, or you can do something about it. And actually, that's where I think where technology and globalization has come to the rescue, if anything, of the VFX industry, is that we've now got tools and mechanisms to be able to make a shrinking budget and a shrinking timeline profitable, rather than just losing margin the whole time. You can now look at ways to go, how great is this possible? Can we make that idea? There's a new way of doing it. So it's come at a great time to be able to do it. But yeah, margins have shrunk. I think that's the case for everyone, to be honest. And you're trying to work it. So if you're trying to support that with a purely UK-based model, either you're asking everyone to take less money, spend less on things, which isn't going to happen because the cost of living is increasing, or you find ways to be able to make the work happen more profitably by utilizing new ways of working, new pipelines, new tools, new partners, all of those sorts of bits.
Interesting. That's excellent. And a very rounded answers. Honestly, I feel like
I think maybe I'm supposed to be a politician.
Like leaning in there. Oh, that's fascinating. Oh, yes, that's really interesting. That's great. So, okay, so let's go on. And what do people outside of post misunderstand about how it really works, both commercially and operationally?
I still think there's an illusion that a lot of people think that there's loads of margin in post still. I still think that's a thing where people think it's okay, we'll just squeeze a post because they've got loads of profit, because they have all these buildings things. And that's why we don't have it, because we have to have buildings, we have to have retained staff. We can scale and grow on project basis, but there is a massive fixed overhead, which, to be honest, production doesn't have really as much of a necessity for. So it's actually, well, the days of you going back 15 years ago and going, oh, there's loads of slush in post, there isn't anymore. So that, I think there's definitely an illusion around that. And because it's the end of the pipeline, has always been pipeline, it's always like, oh, well, we'll see what's left. And I hate that principle. It's like, oh, we've got this thing, we've written an idea, and there's this much left. And it's like, well, that's just poor planning. That's not our problem. You know what I mean? You should have talked to us earlier. We could have told you how much it would have cost. Yeah. Or we can position ourselves upstream where we take more control of that, which I like that idea of that a little bit more. But I think there's an illusion that there's lots of slush in post. And there's things like, oh, actually, things like director's cuts. It's like, we're still paying these people to do it. We're still paying our creative directors to work on these projects. And if they're working on them during normal working hours, which everyone does, because we don't want people working late in the evenings of their own time because they've got well-being requirement, all these sorts of bits that we want to do as well, that means that when they're doing those things, which we're not getting paid for, we're not making any money on anything else, but we still have the same fixed overheads. So it's like, it's us asking, oh, can you do another 30 seconds worth of material? It's sort of like saying, can you do another shoot for free? It's like,
I remember specifically when I was at Rogue, speaking to a post house, and they did a music video for us, and it was a huge amount of post, but it was justifiable in me asking, and they immediately said yes, because they knew the next big job was coming. And that's how the industry, as you know, and we all know, used to work. There used to be a balance of big jobs that would pay for the little ones. And that, as you've mentioned earlier, you cannot, that's not the way it is anymore.
Yeah, so you've got to, and to be honest, I will happily, and we do regularly, invest in projects because we believe in them as creative output, or we think the work's something interesting to do, or we have a relationship with the director or the agency or the production company because we want to do other things. But you need to make the decision based on, can you do it now, not something else is coming down the line. Yeah. And also, I think but as a business, you are going, okay, we're doing this because it may generate revenue down the line in some format. And actually us doing this thing is going to be a showcase thing for something which may get us a different type of work. But you need to make those decisions you need to know what you're getting yourself into. And I'm, like I still said earlier, I'm a sucker for going, yeah, but it's really cool. Let's figure out how to do it. And then figure out how commercially to make it work down the line. So it's sort of my fault, but also my responsibility. So
yeah. You describe yourself as an empathetic and strategic leader.
Okay.
What does that look like in practice?
What does that look like in practice? I think the world is really hard out there. I think it's harder than it was. And I think everyone is going through some sort of personal battle at all times. And when you're a leader, well, you're a person, but when you're a leader, you need to be sympathetic, empathetic to the situation with people going on, and actually the pressures that you can put on and the things you can do as an employer and as a person to support people, knowing that they are probably going through something as well. And I think and I'm quite probably slightly too vocal about the things that I have been through in my my life and the things I'm talking about, but I do it for a reason. It's that I think if people vocalize it and talk about it, it makes it easier for other people to be able to do that. And I have historically never really, until the last couple of years, talked too much about what's been going on inside. And by doing so, and I think by actually me doing that helps other people do that, then I think that's a great thing to be able to do. And I think by showing vulnerability as a leader, it helps other people to do the same and go, well, actually, this isn't me being weak. This is me going from a place of strength. This is just the reality we're in. And I think I try to do that with the team. And you have to make really hard decisions all the time. Running a business, you have to make really difficult personal decisions that are the right commercial decision. But I think if you do it and you behave in a certain way and you take the person into consideration, they stay a person and don't just become a number on a spreadsheet, which is very easy to do when you're running a business, just look at numbers and actually be able to make decisions and do lead the way you want to be able to be seen, treat people the way in business that you want to be treated in life, I think are very important. And then for the strategy side of it, I think it's just trying to explain things to people. And I realized this, I mentioned this earlier, but I realized this when I was doing a presentation the other day, is that I was saying lots of things and I realized that quite a lot of those things don't mean a lot of things to people because they don't even necessarily know what a holding company is or know what this proportion of media spend is because they don't spend their whole time reading campaign and speaking to CRMs, but I do. So actually I just need to, this is where the strategy is coming from. It's not just me going randomly, we're going to do these things and explaining strategy and talking to people and trying to be as transparent about it as possible. And transparency is a really difficult thing with the business because too much information can scare people, too little information can scare people. Some people understand it, how you're presenting it, some people don't. And that's I'm always working out that balance of actually what to say, what not one to say, but trying to do it from a point of a position of wanting to grow, wanting to help people grow, wanting the business to grow and sustain that. But very much from an empathetic point of view, going, the world is tough out there. Let's talk about that and how we can progress together.
So considering communication.
Really, really important.
It's really, especially when with the business environment, you can't relax. There's never, but there, I always remember specifically, we would know how many days roughly, which I always found fascinating. You would know roughly how many days in production world. That's the way we were managing our, that was the language. It was how many days you shooting a year. And you would know roughly how that, for a very, very long time, that was the case, very specifically. And that's just not the case now. So trying to not share your fear with others, when you're managing a business and you're constantly under pressure is, it's an art in itself. I can imagine it's very, very challenging. So, and then beyond that, how do you build culture when so much of your workforce is freelance? I mean, you've got a lot of people in-house, haven't you?
Yeah, we sort of, to be honest, we're sort of restructuring the way that we do business in the last couple of months, actually, is it's looking at that we're keeping as much of the creative core talents we possibly can and scaling and contracting, well, scaling when we need it with fractional talent. Fractional is a buzzword at the moment, but it means it's useful. It's like when you need somebody, you pay for them. When you don't need somebody, you don't pay for them, which makes a lot of sense. And those people can then work across things, especially specialist skills across the VFX side, very important. So we have quite a large core full-time team, but we do bring people in when necessary. Building culture is a constant thing, and culture means different things to different people. Sometimes you're just getting everyone together for a drink. Well, I don't drink anymore. So it doesn't mean doing things well. But how do you bring both? Some people want to go out for a night out or going bowling. Some people don't like being in loud noise, like noises over centuries. How do you build those things? And I think it is a constant thing where you have to sort of discuss things, try and do things. It's hard when you're scaling a business. It's hard when things are moving. It's hard when people are working from home, let alone freelance, and how to balance that. Some people at home had to bring those things in. But I think culture, in my mind, culture isn't pizzas and bowling. It's about the way you treat each other, I think. And it's actually, that's what you can do, is you can treat everyone consistently, and you can do the things that you say, and you can live the way that you're saying you're going to live and treat people a certain way. I think that's more of a culture of a company. The way that you treat your clients, your partners, your staff is more cultural than, oh, we have this party every now and again and do this or do this. It's like those things that I think are different in my mind. Obviously, we quite like a pizza as well, but I think it's actually, if you're saying what's the identity and the heart and the culture of a company, it's the way that the people treat each other, and that has to come from the top. The way that the senior leadership, the owners, the founders treat everyone, and then that filters through, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, the best places I've worked at, it's always been like that. and you stay because of it. You don't move around so much. It's yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. Okay, here's a tough one. No, they're tough one. But what's been the hardest leadership lesson you've learned so far?
I'm learning every day. I'm
Yeah.
learning every single day, and it's a different challenge every day, which is what I sort of quite like about it. I still find it hard to decouple the emotion from the commercial sometimes, especially when we've made some redundancies over a period of time, and sometimes you're letting people who are your friends, people you respect, but actually it's the commercially right thing to do because the revenue's not where it needs to be to sustain the position, or we're changing technical roles. How do we bring to do this thing? And to be able to separate those two is difficult, and I find that hard sometimes. But I know I have to do it. It's my job. And actually, when you make those decisions, you're thinking about the entirety of the business and what that means. And also it's okay, well, what might be better for one person isn't better for the other 75, whatever it is. But equally, when you're saying that, it's always easier to be the person that has to deliver bad news than to be the other person. So always very empathetic to the situation. Someone's got to find a new place to work, and we'll support them through that. But if the role isn't commercially viable anymore, it's better to be honest about that, and actually looking to actually the way that the market's changing. And it's not because we have performed badly or they have performed badly. It's actually what the market needs is different now. So I'm learning that the whole time. I'm learning a little bit, and this is sort of is that you can make decisions around things because you want to be the good guy or the nice guy and do things, and sometimes that doesn't always work out for you. But equally, with that said, I still wouldn't change my attitude on it, because I still want to do things that I think are the right things to do, even if it hasn't worked out and someone has left anyway, or someone has done something which isn't reciprocal for the way that you have treated them. I don't think I should change the way that I want to be as a person because I've been burnt a few times. So, and then it's delegation and trusting the team you built around you, letting other people take responsibility, autonomy to be delivering things, because as you get to the certain scale, you can't do everything yourself anymore. However much I tried to for a long time, we've now got an incredible team of senior leadership, and this across the board, actually, people can take responsibility for things to actually drive it. So I can look at ideas, strategy, overall sort of control. But yeah, I'm learning every day, and I make mistakes every day. Do you know what I mean? But you learn from them, and I think if you're doing it from the right place, which is starting off from a place of empathy and a place of kindness, is a weird word. You don't say kindness in business very much, but I think it's important to be kind. That you're never going to be far wrong, because at least you've made a decision that you think that you agree with on a emotionally personal level.
Fantastic. Good. All right, next one now, the obvious stuff. There's a lot of conversation around AI and automation. Where do you see real change happening in post? And also maybe at the same time, I'm going to ask, like, what's noise and what's genuine shift?
There's lots of noise, lots of questions every time. Is that there is some, I touched on earlier, there's some really good opportunities for us to be able to execute creatively some projects in a way that can make projects creatively better, but commercially viable now by utilizing some of the generative tools within a traditional pipeline. I think where I think things are landing at the moment, I had a really good conversation with an agency the other day, actually, and they are sort of specialists in putting agencies into in-houses, and actually they've been asked from all the brands recently is actually about hybrid AI. So it's traditional craft, traditional pipeline, but enhanced by AI to be able to give them added value. So it's not replacing, it's enhanced, it's working side by side, and that's come from a point of research that they've tried both ways, side by side, worked out it isn't necessarily quicker or cheaper to be doing it in AI anyway, but actually where they can do is gain additional versions, gain additional reach, utilization, localization beyond it just being a language adapt to actually the picture can change, but alongside traditional craft. And that's great, because that's what we all do, what we love, what we think and we know brings effectiveness and creativity to projects, but powering it by these tools that we've now got to be able to add the value the brands need to be able to create the additional content, the additional assets and the additional value that they need to be able to get their own market share. So I think that there's a lot of noise around that, but that's accurate and true, because that's what brands want to be able to do. There's a million tools out there, and it will come down to, it'll be the legislation around it will get figured out at some point. Someone will win, and there'll be fewer tools, but the changes will already have been made. I think we're already seeing across tech companies things that are being dubbed as efficiencies, which basically redundancies across the board, where a load of roles will get replaced. And I think that's a reality that will happen. That's what it's been designed to, and I think it needs to support itself. But I think historically, when these sort of technological shifts are done, you get that, and then new opportunities come out of it at some point. Yeah. There'll be a dip before the growth, I think. US seems to be doing it better than the UK at the moment. I don't know why in terms of that, but I think
when you say that, although they, the tech companies themselves, they're now starting to do big layoffs.
Yeah, I saw that one with Jack Dempsey. It's just like 40% of the company, isn't it?
Yeah, but, I mean, I'm always interested. Jack Dorsey is someone I always fascinated by, not fascinated by, but interested in his thinking. That
was interesting because they've made that decision from a point of profitability.
Yes.
And not going like, okay, we're seeing a shrinking. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. They've gone, actually, we need to do this now, which is a decision where
and the markets have pushed his share price 25%. It was also something that he said, just as an aside to this, he was saying we've got to be really careful about the algorithms reprogramming our brains, which I find really fascinating, just as an aside with what is going on. I think there's so much, as you know, my fascination with AI, we've had discussions about it previously, as you know. And, I think we're being overwhelmed with stuff. And all I'm hearing from the generative AI houses or these new emerging artists that I'm seeing out there is there's, they're hiring traditional roles for filmmaking and content making, because that's what they need all the time. There's no, there's only so much it can do, but at the moment it is moving exponentially. I think it's been a shock for all of us at how quickly things are moving.
Yeah, but I think it's a shock, but also you see the amount of money being pumped into it. It's like, it's got
I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, there is an incredible, I mean, you're absolutely right on that.
Unsustainably large amount of money into it. So it's, and I think people need to, I was chatting to a CMO bank recently, and they were sort of talking about it and going, well, we aren't seeing the margin increases that we're expecting to see from these performance, and we're being told by agencies that, okay, it's going to give you this, and they're seeing like 5%, 10% benefits, which isn't the seismic shift that they think that they need to be able to see. So I think there's like the realization of what we're going to gain, where it's going to gain, where those savings are going to be, where the sort of benefits are going to be. Because realistically, it's about, can you do it cheaper and faster, or can you do something better? Like, but what is that? Actually, where that will sort of level out, and actually going, well, the better way, the most profitable, commercially creative way that adds value and adds effectiveness is this. And then we'll get to that point, I think, soon. And some of the tools will drop off, and there'll be a winner in those tools. The legislation and the sort of governance around them will get standardized. It'll probably be who has got the most money, so it'll probably be Google. Do you know? It's going to be something along those lines, or they'll buy somebody, and we'll get to that point. At the moment, it's just we'll try and sort of figure it out around stuff. But we're seeing benefits of it already in some of the pipeline points.
Okay, so moving on.
I've got like 5 minutes actually. I'll put my kids up.
Okay, right. Well, can you answer one more question, then we can go on?
Yeah.
So last question is, if someone came to you tomorrow wanting to start a post house, would you encourage them?
No, there's too many post houses. If a few had come on to start in the last couple of years and asked me, I would have told them not to as well. But do what your passion is. Don't look at it as post. Look at, okay, where's the opportunity? If you want to do something because you want to run a business and you want to change something and you want to disrupt, 100% do that. Back yourself, do it. Don't define it as a traditional post company, because I don't think many post companies define themselves as traditional post companies now. So it's like, actually, well, is there an opportunity to do something that's within my skill set, or I can add value, can do something in a different way? In that case, yes, there's loads of opportunity out there. Would I say go and rebuild a company that has been built do it the same way? No, not at all. You have to be doing it differently. You have to be adding something. Like, even if you went and hired all of the best talent from all of the other post companies and all the relationships, you'd be doing it and then be changing it again in 2 years. So think of a different way of doing it. Or if you're actually just want it for 2 years because you want to sell it, or you're going to retire something else, maybe that will work. But actually, if you want some longevity and you want some sustainability and future in it, do something that adds something that isn't being done now. Okay.
Listen, Barney, I'll cut it. There was only one left, and it was
still one more.
Okay, one more. I'm worried about your kids at the school. Okay, and what makes you optimistic about where the industry is heading?
People. Like there's people and opportunities. It's like I was having a chat with my friend Melody the other day at an event, and we were talking about, well, what's the industry now like compared to what it was when we started? And it's like, yeah, all the glitz, like a load of glitz and glamour and the pies isn't there anymore, but there's still enough people that I love working with to make it worthwhile. We could all be making a lot more money doing something somewhere else, but I really love most of the people we get to work with all the time, and they're still that. So that's definitely optimistic. And then as an industry as a whole, this, like I said, there is opportunities out there, and it's about changing. And someone that's got a brain like mine, which is always on and all ideas, finding those opportunities is incredibly exciting. If I was just looking and going, okay, well, we're a post house and the things shrinking, you can't do it, I'd be really depressed. But actually going, God, there's so many opportunities of things we can do now, different ways we can do it, different places we can take it, different ways where we can utilize the creative talent, different opportunities to be able to do things upstream, be able to take charge of the pipeline, change, disrupt. That's what we did with number 8. I wanted to disrupt the pipeline. I wanted to do it differently. And there's so many ways you can do that now. And it's all now, it's like, since agencies buying post companies, production direct to brand, post direct to brand, it's a free for you can do what you want, which is really exciting, because you're less worried about treading on people's toes like you were a few years ago, because it's already a fair game. Everyone just wants to make enough money generally. And I say this to all our mates that run the companies. As long as we can all make enough money that we can pay our bills and keep doing what we love, that's fine. It's like, it's less so when there's a holding company that's got shareholders, but it's a different dynamic. But independent sector wise, you can do that. So there's lots of things, but really it's people and opportunities to be able to do things that haven't been done before. Still incredibly exciting.
Barney, this has been great. Honestly, it has been good. I'm listening. I've been really listening to this. It's been really, really good. I really appreciate you taking the time. These are the conversations that matter if you care about the commercial side of advertising and production, and not just sort of the creative surface. And as always, AdBits is powered by 2.0 Film. I'm London-based, working with our Slovenia-based team. We cover Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy, Austria. Fast turnarounds, top-tier crews, standout locations. If you've got a bid coming up, give me a call. I'm Alex Grossman. See you on the next one.